We are live.
We're live. Hey, Priscilla, how's it going?
Good. How are you? Haven't seen you in a while.
Good, good. All right, Dragon Lair S, what's up? Roundhouse,
In a while.
Third Coast Aquatic. Scott is here. How's it going? Sean, the Shell Dweller guy, is in the house. Anthony is with us tonight. Hope everybody's doing well. I think everybody is finally starting to thaw out. I know here in Iowa, we actually hit the mid 40s today, which was definitely a nice break.
It was 60 degrees here.
60. I'll take
Yeah.
60. I would do 60. 60 is pretty good. Dragon Lair said it was 72. If it was 72 where you're at, Dragon Lair, I'm sure you missed the majority of this freeze that we've been dealing with lately. But so, how's everybody been? S said sounds great. That does sound pretty good. So Priscilla recently had a guest at her place, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe.
Somebody that may or may not be with us here tonight, and some of you recognize.
It was fun. It was 2 long days, but it was fun.
Yeah. So what all did you guys do while Anthony was out there?
Work. He literally came here to come to work with me for 2 days.
So he worked with you all day, huh?
Yeah. He fixed a saltwater light, a radion. He took it apart, cleaned it out, put it back
Okay.
together.
All right. And did it work afterwards?
Yep. It stopped
Alright.
making sound.
So he's not totally useless then. So it was worth the
Nope.
trip.
It
Well,
was fun.
I'm sure you appreciate the help. It's always nice to hang out with other people that we get to see on YouTube, but maybe not necessarily in person. So hopefully we can get some swaps spun up here soon, some meet and greet type events, and everybody can actually get to see everybody in person again. Danny, hello. What's shaking? Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate everybody swinging in this evening. It's pretty quiet right now. Looks like we have 12 watching. If you could just do me a real quick favor, and not so much that I care about it as much, but the YouTube gods like it when you hit the thumbs up button and share it. So there, you can grab the link and send it out to a buddy. Share it on Facebook. I know I posted it on a couple different Facebook groups a couple hours ago just to give people a heads up that we'd be on tonight in case you missed the scheduled stream. But if you could at least just smash that thumbs up button, I would appreciate it. And while you got a second, before we get too busy, jump over to Priscilla's channel and give her a thumbs up, a subscribe, drop her a comment if you haven't already.
I'm
Tom,
actually going to share it on my community page
ooh, thank you,
real
appreciate
quick.
it. Patty's here. Hey, Patty, what's up? We missed you. Glad to have you. Love having you around. Always a good time. Danny said no social media. That's okay. You can copy that link and text it to one of your fish buddies. Email it. Just give them a heads up. Let them know what they might be missing out on. The more the merrier, usually. Sometimes things get a little too big on some of these streams for my liking. But I don't think with 15 people that we have to worry about that too much. But anyway, we have, before I get carried away, we are doing a giveaway this evening. It wasn't planned. Obviously, you know, usually I do giveaways on the stream every time we hit the next 100 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed, please click the button and then click the little bell so that you get a little ding notification. Hopefully, sometime when I release a new video, I did put a couple shorts out today just of some shrimp in the fish room after I was digging around in the tanks. So it's a little
Ooh,
messy, but not
I
too
didn't
bad.
see that.
I put them out maybe 2 hours ago.
Yeah, I was
Um,
driving.
so Dragon Lair said Patty's a bad girl. So I'm
What
not
you
sure
do?
what you know about Patty Dragon Lair. Rocco's Fish Room is in the house. Corabella Noche. Let's hear from the folks from the deep freeze country. How's everyone doing? So Corabella Noche lives not too far away from me, about 7 hours to the north and west. near Mount Rushmore. So that's not too far from you, Priscilla. It's actually closer to you than it is me.
Oh, really?
So,
How far away is it?
about 4.5 hours, 5 hours maybe.
Oh, I'm still going there. I thought it was farther.
Nope. So run up to Mount Rushmore, visit the area. Dave's Aquarium Thoughts is here tonight. Usually Dave hangs out with his family. Thanks for stopping by, though, Dave.
Speaking
Appreciate
of Dave,
Herp Diversity. That's a new name. I haven't seen the channel yet. Herp Diversity, welcome to the channel. I'm getting more into frogs myself. I've kept a couple lizards here in the past. I've kept some reed frogs. But we appreciate you stopping by. Pleasure to meet you. Feel free to chat away. Jesse. Hey, Jesse. What's crack-a-lackin'? Dave's here temporarily. Well, temporarily is better than none. So thanks for taking the time, and thanks for your family giving you up for a few minutes. You can stop by to say hi. Appreciate it.
look at all these
Jesse,
people.
I bet
Trick
Jesse's
one.
having a good time in Hawaii. See you, Tom. Maybe you can stop by later. And I know it's a Tuesday night, but if you want to fire up an after party when we're done, we'll probably be about an hour and a half tonight. I'd love to hang out. Dave said he hit the thumbs up. Thanks, Dave. I thought I saw Tennessee Aqua stop by. Maybe I missed him. Robert's here. What's up? And Vinoxky's Tanks. Howdy. So what we're going to do tonight, sometime during this stream, and I'm not sure exactly when, but we are going to give away some artwork tonight that's out of the ordinary. There was recently I found out that we have another artist amongst us, and after speaking with them, checking out his stuff, I decided that despite not hitting another 100 subscribers just yet, that I wanted to plug this guy a little bit because his artwork, he's obviously not well known, but his artwork is pretty awesome. So
I haven't seen it yet. Can I win too? I like artwork.
You can win. So this is Scott R Henderson's art on his artpal.com page, and he is the one and only Third Coast Aquatics, based out of the lovely Third Coast. That's down in San Antone. But here's some, and he specializes in black and white painting, but he does have some color stuff, like this turtle. I think I'm gonna get at least a print of this for myself because that is pretty neat. Fits in with the fish room theme, and I was actually looking at some of this other stuff in here. The macaw. I'm a bird guy on the side. I don't currently have any birds, but that macaw looks pretty dang sharp. So Scott, your stuff looks great, and I appreciate you having around. So go check out Scott, Third Coast Aquatics. He doesn't have any videos on YouTube yet, but go smash the subscribe button over on his channel. And check out his art page. Like I said, mostly black and white stuff. He does do some color stuff, and he said he's getting into some more fish. So sometime throughout the stream tonight, we're going to give away some art from Scott at Third Coast Aquatics.
I want to win.
You can win. Everybody's welcome.
I always wanted a macaw, but I feel like I'm too old to get a macaw because they do get fairly old.
Right. And his prices are stupid cheap. So the winner is going to get an 11 by 14 print of their choosing, shipped to them, which an 11 by 14 print of an image like this for $14 is a steal.
That's pretty awesome.
So he's giving his stuff away. So if you like, if you have a hankering for art at all, or if you just want to help,
post that link please in chat so people can go and.
If you just want to help him out, Scott, like I said, he's based out of San Antonio. He doesn't do art full time. He actually breeds a lot of shrimp on the side, but he's got some pretty cool stuff, and he said he's working on more. So check him out. That's I dropped his ArtPal link in the comments, artpal.com/Scott R Henderson. And like I said, it's pretty good stuff. So I'm gonna get myself. I think I might order a print of the turtle for the fish room, and and then I might do the macaw just to have, because fun. That's
I
why.
need that macaw too. Can you order two?
Do you want me to order one for you too?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll have one sent over you. So, Herbiversity asked to link his channel, which I am working on right now, because it was kind of tough for me to find him earlier, and he actually ended up having to help me out. So here comes the link for his channel. Again, that's Scott at Third Coast Aquatics. Boom, in the chat. Check it out. Like I said, he doesn't have any videos on there now. He said he just kind of recently got into it, but he's one of us. He's our people. So show him a little bit of love if you don't mind. It's free, doesn't cost you anything but a click, and it would be much appreciated. Amanda Mays here. Hey, Amanda. Fantastic fish friends. Howdy, howdy. Thanks for stopping by tonight. If I'm not mistaken, fantastic. I believe you're from Iowa, so you're probably not too far away from me. I'm in Sioux City, but I travel to like the Quad Cities and Des Moines swaps fairly often. So maybe we can meet up. I like to travel and go do stuff. I live in an area with a pretty small fish market myself, within a couple-hour drive short of Omaha. So I have to do some driving to do any store tours or anything. But yeah, so that's cool. And there's actually a friend of mine runs a store down in Omaha called Fantastic Fish of Bellevue.
Oh,
And
I
it's
actually heard from that store. Sure.
Yep. So I can't remember who it was. There's a pretty big YouTuber that stopped into the channel and got some pretty rare catfish not long ago. I'll have to see if I can find the video. If I can, I'll post it. Sean said the art looks great. He can barely write his name so others can read it. Yep, that's me. My chicken scratch is an absolute disaster. Lori is here. Fishymon64 said howdy. What's up, guys? All right. So like I said, while you're listening to me ramble, participate in the chat. It helps a ton. Your questions are kind of what drives the show here. So the questions that you ask are kind of the things that we'll gravitate towards a little bit. But go check out Scott's stuff. If you're busy doing water changes, thanks for lurking. Thanks for tuning in. Taking time out of your day to hang out with us. And speaking of water changes, Priscilla, how many fish tanks do you have in your room, did you say?
I got like 47 or so in total, and I need to do 15 water changes after we get done here.
15 tonight. Okay. So I tend to, for the majority of my tanks, I do about 50% or more once a week. And like I said, for my shrimp tanks, I tend to do fewer water changes. And for some other tanks, like my breeder tanks that I'm raising a bunch of fry out in, I do more water changes. So let's talk about why we do water changes. And you'll see some people, everybody has their own routine based on, like I said, what's in their tank, the size of their tank, what their schedule allows. So why do we do water changes? Well, obviously, like the most basic level, water changes are to remove undesirable compounds from the water and to provide our fish with clean new water, right? So a lot of the times I see this, people comment, well, I only do a water change when my nitrates are high, which is, it depends on your fish. Like obviously higher nitrates in a shrimp tank is going to mean, a lot lower actual nitrate levels than high nitrates in something like an Mbuna cichlid tank, right? But there's a lot more to it than just high nitrates. I see a lot of people are like, oh, well, I do a water change whenever the tests say I should do a water change, and I have high this or high that. But there's a lot of stuff in our water that we don't necessarily test for that we need to be concerned about removing. So like in your shrimp tanks, how often do you generally do a water change, or what might trigger a water change on your shrimp tanks?
So on my Caridina tank, I used to do it about every 2 weeks, and I only remove like 10%. and I only take like a gallon out of maybe a 7 gallon, so I can clean the sponge filters.
Okay.
And I don't really clean the substrate because the shrimp turning it around, and there's a bunch of plants in there. I mean, you can see the tanks right here.
Mm-hmm.
They're like full of moss and stuff. So the nitrate levels are fairly low always, especially if I keep the sponges clean. And for shrimp, high nitrates are not good. So, but then I have other stuff like the neocaridina that are more forgiving, where I maybe change the water once a month.
Right.
And on my bettas, I change the water maybe once a month as well.
Right. It's like I said, a lot of people go based off what they test, and nitrates are just a small indicator or one thing that's potentially undesirable in a fish tank. But there's other things that build up. Most people don't often test for phosphates, which can, while it's not on the radar for most people, it can be potentially problematic, especially when you start running into algae problems. So people are like, oh, well, my nitrates are good, but I still have algae. Well, if your phosphates are going crazy, or there's certain ratios that plant geeks tend to pay attention to, that when the compounds in your tanks are out of balance, if you will, to put it simply, that you start to run into problems. But other than just nutrients, obviously, like your phosphates will build up based on some foods, like flake foods seem to be higher in phosphates than other foods. But one thing that often goes overlooked, and I see people like, well, I don't do a water change for 4, 5, 6 months and my nitrates are fine. Well, that's great that your nitrates are fine. Maybe you have something like Purigen in your filter. Maybe you have a bunch of plants that keep the nitrates down. But like I said, there's a lot of stuff in the water that you don't necessarily test for that could potentially be detrimental. One of those things is hormones. So a lot of people believe to an extent that certain fish may only grow to the size of the tank that they're put in. And that could potentially be true. However, understand that those fish, while they're not growing to their full size, are stunted in growth because of poor water quality due to few water changes. And part of that is hormones that build up in the water. And you'll see that in ponds too. So you can put largemouth bass in ponds and they'll only grow to a certain size. Because at some point in time, there's hormone levels that build up in that water that eventually cause that bass or any fish to stunt in growth and just simply stop growing. So myself, I do water changes on, like I said, most of my tank. Every week, I do about 50%, and sometimes I do more. A lot of people seem to be afraid of water changes, and some people are afraid of large water changes. Is that something that you hear often yourself, Priscilla? Is, oh, well, I don't want to change too much water because my fish will die, or etc.
Yeah, I mean, working at a fish store, I can tell when people are gonna have issues. Like, for example, depending on the area you live in, here in the springtime, because there's so much pollen in the air and whatnot, there's more stuff in the tap water, and a lot of people get algae blooms here in the springtime actually, just because of using tap water, and then they think it's because of light or something that it's not. They're not really testing their water.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and it really just depends on where you live. I mean, the water's different everywhere.
But one of the common misconceptions that I hear about water changes is that people are afraid to do large water changes, and some people think large is anything over 10%. Some people think large is up to 50%. Some people think that if they change 90% of the water, they're absolutely going to kill their fish. However, a lot of that fear comes from the thought that they'll lose the cycle of their tank if they change too much water. Which, if you watch my video about setting up tanks using old water, the majority of your beneficial bacteria lies within the substrate on the hard surfaces, such as plant leaves, etc., and primarily in the filter media, which is what it's there for. So by changing large water amounts, generally speaking, you're not going to lose any substantial amount of beneficial bacteria. So there's nothing to worry about with the cycle itself.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot. Like people are afraid to do large water changes, or people, especially in Facebook groups. I see it a lot of the times in Facebook groups that are primarily full of, fairly new aquarists, telling people not to do water changes because they'll kill their fish, or large water changes because they'll kill their fish. And that's just kind of a myth that needs to be dispelled, if you ask me. And I'm not saying it's wrong 100% of the time, because there are instances where you may have sensitive fish. And like you said, if you have tap water that changes with the seasons, or your city recently changed something in it, a large water change could potentially mean a large change in water parameters. So you just kind of have to know your source water a little bit.
Yeah, and you gotta watch it. Like, for example, my water here is really clean and soft. If I do like a 80% water change on my community tropical tank, the tank will be just fine. But if I would do an 80% water change on my shell dweller tank, I would probably drop that pH like drastically with doing
Right.
that.
And that's one thing that Alishan said, is that some tanks are sensitive to large scale water changes. And I think that potentially has a lot to do with your water source, and some of and we tend to, in the main lake, like the Rift Lake tanks, we tend to put a lot of, you're using Texas Holy Rock, which is harder and it's going to raise, the hardness of your water, etc. So that's definitely something to watch out for. And Dragon Lair echoed that with the Imbunas. And one thing with those large water changes is, you have the people that say, well, my tank runs for, 6 months. I haven't done a water change in a year. My fish look like they're fine, whatever. The problem is, over time, those fish may adapt to whatever water conditions are developing in that tank, because you're not changing the water. You're just doing top-offs. Certain compounds are building up in the tank. And at some point in time, it's either going to crash because of it, or you're going to finally decide that you need to do a water change, whether it's because, there's a lot of detritus that finally built up, you have an algae problem, you need to do water change. And when you do that water change, your water's been slowly changing away from your tap water for so long that when you do that water change, even if it's not a huge substantial amount, you could potentially change the water parameters drastically, and you could see negative side effects from that.
And one thing I've seen, like, I had a customer, she always like brought the water into test, and it always was like nitrates was 80 parts per million. And she would do constant water changes, and she couldn't figure out why her nitrates wouldn't go down. And till she actually figured out that maybe she should clean her filter too, because she had actually two filters on there, a canister and a hang-on back. And she always cleaned the hang-on back filter while she cleaned the tank, but she never actually cleaned the canister filter. And she didn't tell me that she had a canister filter.
Right.
So you kind of got to find that perfect balance of cleaning your equipment as well when you do a water change.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's part of, you develop a regular water change schedule, and along with that, it becomes routine to do some of that maintenance, like whether you're scrubbing glass just to keep things looking nice, or you're getting in there with a toothbrush and cleaning off the hardscape, or you're doing your filter maintenance. And, if you're like, well, I don't need to do a water change, eventually your equipment's going to suffer, and it's going to cause a little more wear and tear. Alishan said 50 to 80% bi-weekly for most tanks, fry tanks weekly, shrimp tanks monthly, about 25%. That is one thing. On my fry tanks, I feed a bit heavier, trying to grow them a little bit faster, and I offer a lot of live foods. So I will do water changes more often on fry tanks. And I think you'll see a lot of people that have grow out setups that run either auto water change or like a flow through type system where it's a trickle. I know Ted Judy, I've mentioned that before. He has a tub setup where it's just kind of a trickle through system where it's basically constant water change. And you'll see similar setups. I'm not big into discus. I used to know some discus breeders, but I know some of the discus breeders used to use a flow through setup just to keep constant clean water running through there, because some of the wild caught specimens tend to be a little more sensitive. And they're the discus people. I've seen discus people do water changes, and they'll drain it so low that the fish is basically just laying on the glass, and then they'll fill it back up. They're doing damn near 100%. And as long as you're doing it regularly and know the water going in and the water coming out, there's not a whole lot to worry about there. Herp Diversity said, unless it's a tank with fry, it usually does infrequent water change. Yep, we talked about that one just now. Danny Said his brother's water comes with 40 ppm nitrates out of the crap. He has to out of the tap. Sorry. He has to
You're
do water
fine.
changes. He has to do water changes like crazy. Yep, and I see some people that'll comment. You know, they always have nitrate problems, and they'll do water changes over and over and over again, trying to fix the nitrate problem. But they don't check their source water to see what they're putting into their tank. So if you're doing water changes to try to reduce your nitrates, but you're somebody like Danny's brother who has tap water with a bunch of nitrates in it, you're just wet. I mean, you're not wasting your time, but you're fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah. And I also noticed in chat a lot of people say different things about doing water changes on shrimp. And from my personal experience of breeding shrimp and all that stuff, I've noticed that it's better to do more frequent water changes, but less. Like try not to change more than like 10% at a time, especially in Caridina tanks. New Caridinas are more, especially if you have shrimp that were born in your water, they're more forgiving, so you can do larger water changes. But on like the more sensitive shrimp, I would not change more than 10%.
Right. And speaking of shrimp and water changes, I know Rob over at Flip Aquatics. He has that 480, right? And it's a massive tank, and he has a ton of shrimp in it. And I know he doesn't do water changes on it. He just does top offs. But you need to understand that the low bio load and the low biochemical output from those shrimp is such a minute amount in 500 gallons of water that it takes a lot longer for things to build up. And I know he's talking about, instead of just doing water changes or maintenance on it, I think he's just going to tear that tank down and reset it more or less.
And the substrate helps too. I mean, he has shrimp friendly substrate in there that keeps like the parameters stable as well. So.
So Herp Diversity said that since they have super hard water and high pH, they have issues with super large water changes on low pH fish. That can definitely be a problem. I myself, I have hard water here in Iowa. It's like liquid rock. I mean, it comes out of the tap. You're looking at 450 TDS. It just, I mean, there's calcium deposits all over my plumbing. So I run a lot of RO water, and I'll remineralize with something like RO Right to achieve, you know, the desired hardness that I want, and to make that easier to, you know, adjust it to the fish that I'm trying to do. pH, I don't really pay attention to pH so much myself. We had a few people stop in while I've been yakking. Danikin Aquatics, Kenny and Danny. Hey, hope you guys are doing all right over in Oregon. Hope you're not staying too warm. I think you've had some pretty decent weather over there. Chubbs is in the house. What's up, Chubbs? Kevin Leong. Hello. Amy's here. Always glad to have Amy around. Just a kind soul. We appreciate her being in here. So S asked, all things fish. Hey, that's me. When you change water for hot water fish, do you have to heat the water up to temp, or can they handle the change? And I would say that depends on the size of your water change and what fish you have. So when I'm trying to trigger a spawn in something like a Pistos or Corydoras, or even Rams that tend to like water often in the low to mid 80s, I know with Corys, I have no problem. I'll hit that tank with like a 60-70% water change and drop the temperature like 10 degrees in like 5 minutes, and it's nothing for them.
But those are all Amazon fish, and they can handle that because they do get that rainy season where it will drop cold, and that's usually what also triggers them to spawn. So
right, exactly. So that's something. I know it's kind of a generic question with a generic answer. It depends. Like I said, it depends on the fish, and that goes for all your water changes, not necessarily just hot water fish. Keep in mind, think about the habitat that they come from. So Corys and Rams, like we talked about, they come from the Amazon, where they get the dry season, water volumes go down, they get a lot of sun, that water heats up, they're going to be in shallower water. And then when things cool off, they cool off quick, whether it's through rain or through, meltdown from the ice, the snow up in the mountains melting down and cooling off the rivers and streams that they're from.
But I wouldn't do that with African cichlids because they cannot regulate body temperatures as well.
Definitely. So like even my cribs, I don't do cool water changes on really. They spawn just fine. I try to match the temperature within a few degrees at least, and can usually get it pretty close. So with some of my fish, like I said, I use RO for a lot of fish and remineralize. I do have about 110 gallons worth of storage that I use to heat and mix. Fishymon64 said, hi, 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 Priscilla.
I saw that. Guest was also saying his cold water is like 69 degrees. So again, it depends on where you live. Like my cold water is like close to freezing because it comes out of the ground in Colorado.
Yeah, out here in Iowa, I actually have to heat my water right now to do water changes because, it's probably 50 degrees tops. It's cold. Danny said match temps as best as possible. Yep, like I said, I try to get within a few degrees for most of the fish, unless I'm trying unless I know that fish can handle it and do it with a reason. Don't just like throw cold water in, just being lazy because you don't want to heat it up. So have a reason for doing it, like you're trying to trigger a spawn. Third Coast.
For example, at the store, we have a water heater that only gives us so much hot water. So if we do water changes in African cichlids, we try to do it first, because if we don't and we do it at last and we're gonna blast them with cold water, they're all gonna be bumped out for the rest of the day, or for like a couple of days after.
Right.
So
Third Coast said he uses a ladder and bucket gravity system. Screw that. I haven't hauled. I haul buckets on occasion for certain things because my tanks are some are upstairs, some are downstairs. I don't miss hauling 5-gallon buckets. For anybody that's in the chat, if you don't have a Python type water changer, spend the $30 and just save your back and save yourself some time.
Best thing I ever bought.
As far as water changes go, best $35 I've ever spent, I think. And I mean, replacement parts are pretty cheap. Herp diversity. Not doing water change is not impossible. It's definitely not for most people. I only use RO or distilled to top off, and I never do it in fry tanks. Yep, that's one thing. Like if you're using, think about how water evaporation works partially. So if you have fairly hard water that you're putting in your tank, and it's just like if you think about a salt tank, it's pretty easy to visualize, I think. So that water evaporates, especially in the winter. That water evaporates, but it leaves those solids behind, like the nitrates, the calcium, the magnesium. That's not evaporating out with the water, so that's staying in the tank. And then if you top off with tap water that's not very clean, you're just increasing those levels much higher. So if you are using RO or distilled, like Herp Diversity said, you're really helping yourself out on your top offs there.
I always like salt water is a whole different game if you're gonna go change water, because you don't want to fluctuate the temperatures too much.
No.
Especially if you keep corals and stuff. Like I mix my days beforehand, then I let the bucket sit in the room, and I constantly have to top off water too, where I use RO, but I have like a 5-gallon jug right next to the tank, so it's not too cold.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So Dragon Lair said he stays within 5 degrees of tank temp with water change, except not 5 degrees warmer. And I would agree with that. Generally speaking, from my experience and kind of some of the reading I've done, fish adapt better to a drop in temperature than a sudden rise in temperature. And I think a lot of that has to do with oxygen levels myself.
Yeah.
So I don't have the science to prove the oxygen level part, but if you think about it, colder water holds a lot more oxygen than warmer water. So if you're heating a tank up really fast, there's a lot of different things going on. Third Coast said he trickle drips his Caridina and the Neos. So that's one thing that you don't often see is how fast you're removing and replacing water. So like on my 125, if I have if I'm running tap water in it, I have no problem just cranking my tap full blast and filling it up as quick as I can, because the fish that are in there, it's a large volume of water. The fish that are in there are pretty hardy. But if you have a shrimp tank like Third Coast Scott's talking about, you might want to change the water a little more slowly, especially if you're not sure if the parameters are spot on. Danny Kitten says they're going back to work. Have a good one. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate you. swing back in, and you might win a piece of Scott's artwork if you can. So lurk in the background, listen up. John from MFT, that's my fish tanks, water change Wednesday, 30% weekly for this guy. I'd say that's good. I know a lot of people like change, even on their like community fish type tanks, they'll change 10%. And for me, if I'm going to go through the hassle of changing water on a fish tank, 10% for most tanks, except shrimp, isn't really worth my time. But that's my 2 cents. Don't take that for gospel.
But how often do you actually test your nitrate levels?
I don't. So there's people that only do water changes when their test says they should change, and then there's people that. So I'll check my tap water, or like I said, I use a lot of RO in my tanks, so I know that RO water going in is clean. So if I change the water 50% every week, there's no reason for those parameters to ever be outside of the norm unless I have something funky, like, for whatever reason, a fish died in the tank and I didn't see it. So often by doing regular water changes, you're tightening the window. You're kind of narrowing down the band for how far out of your ideal range that your parameters get, because you're constantly bringing that water back to where you want it.
I mean, sometimes I have customers that come in and go like, I change my water twice a week, and I'm like, why? Because, I mean, there's an easy way to find out how often you have to change your water. If you have a well-balanced tank and you're not adding constantly new fish and a new bioload to the tank, you can do a water change. Test the nitrates the day after, see how low they are after doing a water change. Give it a week, see how much they went up. Give it another week and see how long it's going to take till you get to the point where you want to change the water. And that should tell you your water change schedule.
And I mean, that's a pretty good way to develop a baseline. And I'm not saying that my habits and my techniques and my routine is what's going to work for everybody. Like, I have the time to do once a week. That works on the fish that I keep. Some people have the time to do it once a month. If as long as that works for you and your goals, then stick with it. And all that I say is, like, make it routine. And if you are waiting a longer time frame, make sure that your parameters for your source water and your tank water are at least kind of close. Kevin Leong said low bioload and lots of plants. Yep, that'll go a long way. Low bioload, like I said, it's going to take a lot longer for those undesirable compounds to build up. Plants do help export nutrients a lot, and you'll see that in saltwater tanks too. Instead of plants, they'll use macroalgae that'll suck up, your nitrates, your phosphates, etc. And then when their macroalgae fills up their sump, they just pick it up, they give it to somebody else, and they just start over, and that's how they export their nutrients. They have a protein skimmer, that's removing things out of the water. They'll dump that. That's their nutrient export. In freshwater tanks, we tend to use like a chemical media, like Purigen, or plants, or like Pothos. Pothos will suck up some of the nitrates and phosphates, and that'll export it out of the water column for you. Alishan mentioned cold water changes trigger cories and plecos. Yep. Dragon Lair mentioned, like you kind of said, Priscilla, that water changes hardness every season, and it just depends on your source. And sometimes, it'll change unexpectedly, or your local water treatment plant will switch chemicals, or maybe they'll make a mistake on their end. So, like I said, know your source water as best you can, and most public water municipalities post that stuff. They test like monthly or weekly, even online.
That's why I like to use RO water, just to eliminate failure. Especially like last year in the summertime, we had a lot of fires. And I noticed, like, I have a couple larger tanks where I use tap water. I all of a sudden got algae bloom like crazy, which I usually never get in the summer. So I'm just assuming that all the ashes that went into the reservoir added too much nutrients to the water and made algae go crazy.
Yep. And speaking of RO, so Kevin asked what RODI I use, and I use, there's lots of brands out there. They all, for the most part, do pretty similar things. but I actually use a bulk reef supply. It's a 5-stage system. So I use a 5-stage because we use our local water uses chloramines to treat the water, and a 4-stage isn't particularly effective at removing those. So I use a 5-stage RODI from Bulk Reef Supply. You can get them pretty affordable. I think $200. This guy works just fine right here. There are some cheaper setups out there, like Liquigen. Liquigen also offers a 5-stage setup. I think you can get it on Amazon for like $130, and they'll include a pressure gauge and an auto top-off float valve. Other options, if you are just using a small amount of water, you can use like the RO Buddy, I think. Is that what it is,
Yeah, which
Priscilla?
is what I'm using, the RO Buddy.
Okay.
Because my water here comes out of tap like 50 TDS, so there's barely anything in it. So I technically don't have to use it. The RO Buddy, the cartridges are a little bit smaller, so you will burn through it much faster if you do have a high TDS. But since mine is so low, I can go with the RO Buddy for quite some time.
Yeah, and I think if you look for a discount code through Petco or Chewy or whatever, you can get it for like $45 or $50, which is pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Xanadudu's here. Hey, Xanadudu. Howdy. Hope you're doing all right tonight. Herp Diversity, hit the like. 1 more to 30. Appreciate you. Like, share, do the subscribe, all the YouTube things. I feel, I try not to harp on it too much, but YouTube gets mad at you if you don't. And my goal is, somebody asked me the other day, they're like, well, what are you trying to do with YouTube? And you should always have a lot of people start YouTube and they don't really have a goal. They're like, well, are you just trying to make money? And no, I'm not. I don't tell you to hit like, share, and subscribe because I'm trying to make money. In the end, if I make a couple bucks to spend on fish at the end of the day, whenever that happens, if it happens, that's great. Otherwise, I'm trying to grow the channel so that I can reach a larger group of people, because the bigger your channel, the more new people you reach. And I'm not trying to be huge, so don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to grow to a size where I can reach out and grab some new people, because there's so much misinformation on the internet. And because it's so easy to just go out and make a YouTube video or whatever, that I'm trying to reach people and help educate people a little bit better. So hopefully you guys feel like I'm doing something productive. Hopefully you're learning. Hopefully you're enjoying it. And if I ever say anything that's wrong, let me know. Like if you're like, nope, that's horse crap, post an article or something, or back it up. Don't start an argument where it's like he said, she said. Like let's talk about it. I'm down to learn. I'll share my opinion versus yours. We can civilly do that. We're adults, right? Usually.
It's the internet, and it's 2021. I'll be right back.
Some people that can't hang. Roundhouse said they do 50% with pure cold water only on all the tanks, so all types of fish. I said, do what works for you. That works for some people like me. The fish that I keep, I know can hang like that. It just really depends. Jeffrey Watts asked if Third Coast had a YouTube page, and I think, boom, should be right there, Jeffrey Watts. Go check out Scott at Third Coast. Again, if you haven't seen it already, we're going to be giving away some art from Scott over at Third Coast. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Boom, right there. Hit him up on YouTube. Like I said, doesn't have any content yet. He's starting to get going. He mostly, I know he hangs out on a lot of the chats. He does a lot of shrimp stuff. He also does art. I dropped his art page in the chat. Check it out. His prints are stupid cheap. I was talking to him earlier. I'm like, man, you are selling yourself short. Like, I know you do it like as a hobby on the side, but you are selling yourself short. What you got there?
So I do have an RO Buddy, and it comes with 3 cartridges. And the DI one was the one you change the most. And I think this one is like $12 to replace.
Yeah, it's not bad. And it probably lasts for somebody like you, or you're not using a ton of RO water, and you're not using like myself. I have really nasty tap water that I'm treating, so I burn through it a little bit faster. But that probably lasts you a couple years.
No, like about 6 to 8 months.
Okay, that's not too bad. Fish Guy Nick said planted tank and non-planted tanks have very different water changes, requirements, recommendations, in his opinion. I definitely agree there. So my planted tanks, so my 125 my display, I use the estimative index method of dosing, which basically says you give plants everything they need as far as your NPK, so your micros, macros, and then you give them just a little bit extra so that there's never a nutrient that's the limiting factor in their growth. And then at the end of the week, you reset with a 50% water change just to reset everything, and then you dose the tank again throughout the week. So yeah, that's a big thing. Some planted tanks can go a little bit longer, just because, like I said, those plants are exporting nutrients. Roundhouse said his manganos and daffodils get 50% a week with cold water, and he said they do fine. So like I said, it depends on the fish.
But plants like water changes too.
Oh yeah, I said. In fact, Tom Barr, recently there was a discussion on Facebook, which Facebook can be a great resource and a terrible place to get caught up in misinformation. But Tom Barr was posted on there, and you'll actually notice that a lot of plants, when you do those bigger water changes, because those plants have access to atmospheric CO2 for however long they're out of the water for the water change, you'll see pearling right after the water changes. You'll see some increased growth with more often water changes because of the cleaner water, as well as, they're getting the access to the CO2, which is great. I posted Third Coast link. Should be somewhere in the chat. Rocco City's getting food. Oh, that was 20 minutes ago. All right, I'll move faster.
I need to get some food.
I'm sorry.
Reach faster.
Alishan said they dropped their water as much as 5 to 8 degrees. I think that's pretty reasonable. So Alishan keeps soda cichlids, and I actually recently got some. So this is Alkylapia Alkalicus, which I got from a breeder in Nebraska, and it's a super. You guys know I'm not like huge into African cichlids, but these fish, for whatever reason, they just Alkylapia Alkalica. These fish are just super awesome little fish. It's called the soda cichlid. See if I can get a picture, and they live in pretty, kind of gnarly water that you wouldn't expect to see.
You said soda cichlids?
It's called the soda cichlid. So Alkylapia Alkalica. There's a couple different strains.
Never seen those.
They're not common, and I had never seen them until a user on Aquabid posted them. And let me see if I can switch this over. There's a few different types. So Alishan, if you could drop what type of soda cichlids you keep, because I know there's a few species in the Alkylapia.
Those look pretty cool. It's pretty awesome if you work at a fish store and you see a lot of things, and then you see something you have never seen before.
Like these guys, this is Alkylapia ndalalani. But again, just a super cool little fish. They like hot water, and they like really hard water with a little splash of salt in there. I recently got a group. They're at a buddy's house right now. So Alishan,
dorsal fins.
Alishan, drop what species you have. I'm curious, and if you could share your water parameters, because the water parameters are actually pretty surprising. Sean's using valves for water changes, which is great. I use a tote or storage containers in a big pump. There you go, Rio 2100. That's exactly what I use. It works just fine. No problem. Fish Guy Nick's trying to get his dad to buy the Python because he does the bucket and ladder system too. It's a pain. I did that for a couple years, and I changed water on a 75 with 5-gallon buckets, and I was doing 50% changes, and it was, even in my young age back then, I was breaking my back.
Gets old quick.
Not a fan.
Even if you don't have a Python, you can just buy a water pump too. Put a 5-gallon bucket in your sink and fill the 5-gallon bucket in the sink while you pump the water into your tank.
Right.
Like, I've been there.
Yeah. So Dragon Lair said he just tops off his shrimp tanks and hardly ever changes the water. That seems to be pretty common. Roundhouse mentioned for salt tanks you have to pre-make the water, period. Yep. Saltwater water changes are a pain in my butt. Not a fan. Fishimon left for work about 20 minutes ago. Hope you have a good night, Fishimon. If you catch this, maybe you're jumping in the replay later. Sean said his last update was showing the plumbing. I haven't, I'm behind on your fish little shed, Sean. I got to try to catch up on that. Tom says he's lurking here. Thanks for coming back, Tom. Appreciate it. Danny said he's out. We'll see ya. Kevin Leong said Priscilla. They have issues with test strips and the liquid master test kit because I have to match colors and fill to a certain line, and I have a visual impairment. So what do you suggest somebody like this do? I mean, there's a lot of digital tests out there. Digital tests are advancing, but they're a little bit pricey.
So one thing good to do with those test tubes is a lot of people look at it from the side. You're technically supposed to look at it from the top, like inside the tube, and just go into a very well lit area, like daylight area. And if you have a hard time seeing the colors, looking at it from above onto a white surface, you should take a picture of it. If you take a picture of the test tube right next to the chart, you can blow the picture up a little bit, and then you get closer to it. The colors on the chart are never going to be the same as they actually are in the test tube, but it still gives you a good ballpark of what it is.
Yeah, and good point on the top-down thing. And don't feel too bad. API stands for always potentially inaccurate because their test kits, they might get you close, but something like the nitrate test, you could test it once and it'd be 0, and you test again, it's like 140. So good luck. Fish Guy Nick says, well-planted tank, overfiltering, and medium bioload, a sweet spot. I said, find what works for you. If what you're doing accomplishes your goals, great. Like I said, it's just the people that are like, oh, I do water change once a year, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, it might work temporarily, but it is just, it's not a recommended technique.
Oh, speaking of testing water, so API makes this water spin. And it's like a little machine that has a round disc that will spin for 3 minutes, and it will print out your test results pretty accurately. But that thing costs a lot of money. It's like $1,200 retail.
Right. Yep.
And we are getting one for the store, but when we get one for this, like some fish stores actually have it, and you can go and get your water tested there. But it's going to cost you between $5 and $7 a water test. It's not going to be free.
That's like for saltwater, I think it's the Triton test kits. That they're super precise, but it's going to cost you a couple bucks. Jeffrey Watts said they do 25% weekly on all their tanks. Like I said, I would say the biggest thing is to find a regular routine that works for you, that you can be consistent with. Roundhouse said RO Buddies up to 100 gallons per day. That's pretty impressive considering the size of it. That's pretty fast. And obviously, that depends on your water pressure coming in. Kevin asked about Aquatic Life RO Buddy. Is that the one that Chewy sells? That's pretty
the one
popular.
I got too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
fish stores will sell it too.
So Rocco's, I'm not sure if this is weather related or not, but I saw a few comments where he's been losing some fish, getting frustrated. If you need help, Rocco's, feel free to reach out. Like you said, you got Third Coast down there. Scott's a good dude. Hit him up. You guys have, like you said, a support system. I think you said your wife or girlfriend's kind of pushing you along. Stick with it. If you need a break, take a break, because it shouldn't be work. It's a hobby. That's one reason that I try not to push myself. Like, I was like, oh, do you want to run a fish store one day? I'm like, yeah, not really. I want this to be my hobby. I don't want it to be work. I don't want it to feel like work. I don't want to have to rely on it for income.
So if you want like a really, really accurate water test, like for example, you want your tap water to be tested or something, you should get the ICP analysis. And I did just post the link for that in chat. You can order the tubes and you get a kit and I think you get 5 water tests, and you send it back, and they will print you out like a really, really accurate water test, like everything, calcium, phosphates, like it's like 30 different things. But I mean, you can't do that on a weekly on every tank. It's just like
Right.
kind of a every once in a while thing.
Yep. Dan Slee's in the house. What's up, Dan? Hope you're having a good night, bud. And then, so Jeffrey Watts mentioned that Third Coast. It said, I'm a Leo and really digging that King of the Pride print. So again, here in a few minutes, I think we'll give away. Somebody's going to win one of these prints. Maybe this one can be yours, but we'll take a look at it. Oops. Check this bad boy out. That is pretty sweet. I dig it. So does Jeffrey Watts. Jeffrey Watts, you might take it home tonight for free $99. But even if you don't win, let's look at this. Let's look. If you just want just the print, I mean, an 8x10, that's $7. Like that's a steal. $7. Get yourself a frame for another few bucks. Hang that bad boy up. Show it off. That is sweet. You know, Scott, great job again. You know, I'm glad I bumped across your stuff. Loria said Facebook groups can be brutal. Yeah, they are. They're rough. I used to be more active in them, and then I kind of decided that, you know, I'd look at them and try to help out when I can, but there's just, you know, I've been kicked out of several Facebook groups for telling people that they were giving bad information or advice that was just totally like off point.
I can see you be the troublemaker.
So the moderator's like, well, the rules say that you have to be nice. I was like, I was nice. So like, I simply told them, like, you're wrong. This is incorrect. Please stop giving out bad information. And I hurt somebody's feelings. So, there's going to be some times where I'm not afraid to tell people I'm wrong. And if I hurt your feelings, sorry, not sorry.
It doesn't matter how you put it. You can always offend somebody.
Oh, yeah. So Kevin said he's looking at the bulk reef supply, the 5-stage, 200 gallons per hour, but only have 30 ppm. Thanks. Anyway, is it easy to adapt to faucet and take off? I want to be able to travel with it too. So a 5-stage is going to be tough to travel with it. It's pretty bulky. It's maybe so the main unit is usually, you know, 3 canisters, and then you have your RO on top, and some units have the DI on top. Some units have the DI in a separate filter housing. As far as plumbing goes, it hooks right up to a sink. But if you want something portable that you can travel with, I would honestly look at the RO Buddy. It's a much more compact system. It's not much. I mean, this is a 7x7x6 box that's actually going to Scott. But it's not much bigger than this, really. It's easy to carry around. Doesn't take up space. It's effective.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
So I would think about that. Roundhouse said Facebook groups are totally useless. I would agree that most of them are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a shame because Facebook has such potential to be great information, but you know, it's rough. So Alshan said they have. Remember, we were talking about the soda cichlids, Priscilla, the Alkylapia, the Ndalani, from Paul Lewis L. So that's Alshan. Email me if you breed those. You said you got F1s. When you breed those, I want some. So I know a breeder in Lincoln, Nebraska, that I believe has the Ndalani. If I could get some from them and some from you, that would be awesome.
We gotta do the giveaway. Some people are trying to go to bed.
Trying to go to bed. All right. So you guys know how this goes. So the winner will get an 8x10 or 11x14 of their choice from Scott over at Third Coast Aquatic. Again, I'll post his link in the chat. Check it out. And we're just going to play the number game. So Priscilla, you're going to be in charge of the numbers.
Right.
I'll say start momentarily. I believe we probably have, if it's anything like our other streams, expect to see about 25 to 30 people in the chat. And we have 29. So number 1 to 50, throw it down and start while I try to catch up with this, because I like to talk to people. I know I get behind, and and I apologize for that, but I want to make sure that I'm touching base with everybody. I want you guys to feel like you're part of the stream and not just watching somebody answer a couple questions here and there.
You're pulling a Dan.
Stop. Alishan, they bred frequently, but were difficult to get the young. Very skittish. Okay. So Alishan must be in the club with Paul Loisel. So that would be great. I wish I had somebody like that in my club. I'm kind of, as far as freshwater goes, I'm like one of the top guys in my club, and I wish there were people above me for me to get stuff from. Sean asked if you got a chance to work on some shell dweller art.
Oh, I answered. No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
I had a visitor this weekend, and life happens.
Yep. So Kevin said he bought the $50 Hannah digital readers from Bulk Reef, purchased all 4. Where's the money they spent? I haven't used them.
$50 each.
So Hannah, I think, usually has a decent reputation. Like I said, I haven't used them though.
They're pretty accurate, but a lot of them have like where you have to use RO water in order to like calibrate it. You have to calibrate it every time before you use it, and then you have your other test tube where you have to add a powder reagent,
right,
to shake it up and then test it. So it takes a little bit. It's more time consuming, but you get a really accurate result.
Okay. Roundhouse was talking to Rocco's, but he was talking about not using, maybe not so using really warm water because in your water heater you get a lot of sediment and stuff that builds up, and it will raise your hardness. So you'll see more TDS if you use hot water. Most of the time, you'll see higher TDS readings out of your tap water than if you just use straight cold water. And like I said, that's just because the sediment and stuff that's building up in your water heater. It's unfortunate. Kira Corey Durable's in the house. What's up, Kira? Thanks for stopping by. I did see, so Kira posted a video, just a short, earlier today, I believe, and she was asking if any of the rice fish, I think she said she had the Madaka and the Miyake rice fish, and she was asking if the older ones, so the adults or the older juvies, would eat the fry. Do you have experience with that, or what's your knowledge of that, Priscilla?
I never really kept rice fish, but I know from other people that have kept rice fish that like it's kind of like with the African cichlid. If you have a colony breeding, the juvenile can outcompete the new fry and eat the new fry. The parents usually don't, but the population still kind of self-regulates it.
Mm-hmm. So I had a friend, and I had the Oryzius wow race, the Daisy's rice fish that I got from a friend, and he said he was not able to raise them without pulling the mops because the parents would predate on them. I kept some of his fish in my tank with mops and some live plants, and I was able to get fry. I didn't get a ton of fry. They're kind of slow reproducers, but they did not predate on all of them. So Kira, to answer your question, yes, they may. Depends on the fish. If you keep them well fed, they'll probably be all right. That in mind, though, parents don't always eat the fry just because they're hungry. A lot of the times they'll eat them out of a survival situation where they feel threatened or stressed, so they'll eat the fry so they can reconsume those nutrients, so they give themselves a better chance.
You just need a lot of cover if you want some of the fry to survive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I thought maybe my chat's behind. I thought I told people to start throwing numbers down. 1 to 50.
You didn't put start in chat?
Fine. Start.
You said you were going to put start in chat.
Sorry. All right, go. Guess numbers. Sorry, guys. 1 to 50. Priscilla's going to play the random number generator game. John Oliver's in the house. John Oliver's Guppies and Aquatics. If you're not familiar, John Oliver obviously keeps a lot of guppies, and they're very nice. I have some half black white tuxedos downstairs that are doing quite well. Beautiful fish. He runs a band group, I believe, that is J. Oliver's Guppies and Aquatics, and you can find a lot of his stuff there. And he does ship out pretty often too. Start it up. Make it happen.
I don't know. I feel like I already have enough things on my hands.
Alice Shan said that Doclo sells the speaker chair for the North Jersey Aquarium Society. 25 years. That's impressive. If this guy doesn't, as far as I know, I don't think Alice Shan puts out a bunch of videos. But this guy here is full of good stuff in his head about breeding fish and everything. So don't be afraid. If I'm yakking about some other nonsense, don't be afraid to ask him a question. Super, super smart. Deborah Sanders asked, should she boil water to raise the temperature of the tap water instead of using water from the water heater? I would not suggest it myself. If I wanted to heat it, I would get, the water heater's not water from the water heater isn't a terrible option. Just understand it will raise your TDS, your hardness, etc. And it's not going to be as clean as the cold water, but you could use a storage tote, whether that's something as simple as a 5-gallon bucket, an IBC tote. I have 55-gallon plastic drums and just heat them out of the drum, and then use like a Rio 2100 or just some sort of small pump to pump that into your tanks. I have a 35-gallon Brute trash can on wheels. So I'll fill that up with water, and I can drag that around and just pump into each tank as I see fit. Numbers are being thrown around. Nobody said 50. So last time we did a giveaway, I think 50 and 49 were both winners.
It came like twice in a row, didn't it?
Yeah. So Cheshire Cat's in the house. She wants to win some artwork. Cheshire Cat, I do owe you some plants. I didn't forget about you. I'll send you an email probably tomorrow and probably ship next week because, like I said, the weather finally broke here. We're out of this negative 25-degree stuff. And yes, I've shipped in sub-zero weather just fine. However, I don't currently have heat packs, and I'd like to give you a little better shot at getting some plants. So I'll wait to ship probably next week. So I'll email you, make sure that works, and get you taken care of. Kira said that makes sense. She'll pull out the bigger babies so they don't eat the newly hatched ones. Multiple tanks. That's where it's at. John said he appreciates the shout out. Appreciate you, John. Thanks for stopping by, and thanks for distributing some great fish out into the hobby. We'll pick the number in 1 minute here. Kevin asked, does anyone know where I can get clown killies? Shipping seems so expensive, and it would be about the same price, if not more. Fish also seem kind of expensive. So clown killies, for those of you that aren't familiar, are Epiplatus annulatus. Sometimes they're called the rocket killie. And they are an extremely underrated fish. Super easy to keep. Annulatus, not very demanding, fairly easy to breed, and they look super cool. So this is a male and a female. And if you haven't kept killies, I would say probably the two species to keep to try would be Epiplatus annulatus, so the clown or rocket killie, like Kevin asked about, or the Australia orange. That's an Aphyosemion. Remember, but this is Aphyosemion australis. That's the orange version. They come in a gold and a chocolate variety. They're both super easy to keep. Where to find some? There's a lot of breeders on Aquabid, aka if you're a member of the American Killifish Association, they also offer that stuff up. And you can actually find eggs for sale occasionally. So killifish breeders will often pull the eggs into some peat or into a mop, and they'll ship that. So you can save on shipping. You just have to go through the effort of hatching them out. You may not get a great success rate. You may end up with 25 fish. So it can be a wash. So number time. So let's see who wins. Again, that's an 11x14 print from Third Coast Aquatic. That's Scott Henderson. And go with the number when you're ready, Priscilla.
Oh. Shared my screen. All right, let's do it. 3, 2, 1. Number 7.
Kevin's calling me out. John, have a good night. Cheshire Cat. Dog groups are iffy. Facebook groups in general are iffy. So while Priscilla goes and tracks down a number, I'm going to try to keep up with the chat here. I'm pretty well caught up. Learned tons in good groups. Yep, it's rough. And sometimes the moderators aren't necessarily smart people. They just happen to start a group.
Looks
or
like
friends.
Kevin Long won.
Kevin Long.
Number 10.
Number 10. So congratulations, Kevin. Drop me an email, mike.allthingsfish@gmail.com, and I'll drop that in the chat. And you won a print from Scott Henderson. That's Third Coast Aquatics of your choice. Again, that's an 8x10 or an 11x14. Take your pick. Again, just message me in the email and let me know what you're after. Roundhouse to Kevin said that he got his clown killies from Aquatic Arts. I haven't ordered from Aquatic Arts myself. They seem like they have a decent variety of fish.
Their shipping is overnight shipping.
Yep.
Just nice too. It costs a little more, but it's nice.
Cheshire Cat, I'm not sure where she's from. I can't remember. But she said it's 70 degrees here. It's weird to see people posting about snow. Welcome to my life from November till about April.
Yep, same here.
Sean talking about shipping again to Kevin. Yep, shipping shipping is one of those things that you just have to factor into the cost of the fish. It is what it is. It's been tough, but so that's a thing. Again, everybody's saying congrats, Kevin. We are Patty wants a do-over. What do you guys think? Should we give another one away? So just comment again if you guys want. Obviously, I can't make you guys go check out Scott's stuff, but let's support him a little bit. Just show him a love any way you can. His prints are silly cheap. Beth wants a do-over. Beth Carpenter, howdy. So a couple people wanted a do-over, so we're not going to do a do-over. Kevin Long will still get a print of his choosing, but we're going to run one more here. So we'll do a number from 51 to 100 this time. Make Priscilla actually work over there.
I gotta move my fingers.
51 to 100. And I will say go right now. And again, this is for either an 8x10 or a 11x14 of your choice from Third Coast Aquatics Scott Henderson art. I dropped his link in the chat, artpal.com/Scott R Henderson. Show him some love, folks. And go. 69. Roundhouse, I like you already. Alishan said, thanks for the kind words. Don't produce vids. That's okay. I didn't either. And I just got sick of seeing bad information. I was like, you know what? Maybe this is my chance to step in and throw my 2 cents in. And some of it's opinion. And I try to make it clear when it's my opinion versus when it is factual information. S guess 69 too. Roundhouse and S might get into
your experience. You could call it your personal experience as well.
And I feel like most of the time I can back it up fairly decent. Somewhere up here, Patty said we're getting spoiled by all things fish. Patty, I'll spoil you all night long. Wait.
That doesn't sound right.
What?
That doesn't sound right.
Kevin asked if Aphyosemion Australia, if they're good for a community tank. I would say probably not. They stay a bit smaller. Most killie fish keepers are hoarders, and they keep their stuff in shoe boxes around their house. So I would say probably not for a community tank. A small, like if you had like a 10-gallon or a 20-gallon, you could probably do maybe like a trio of the Australia orange or Australia golds or chocolates, and some slower moving fish probably, or some shrimp. You'd be okay. Now keep in mind that if you don't have a lot of plant cover, you'll never see any juvies from your shrimp, but it is kind of an interesting tank. and a
So
lid.
to the rules of this pick your number, it is whoever gets the closest without going over. And if there is 2 winners or 3 winners, people that pick the same number, we're gonna redraw a number between those 2 people. I can't talk anymore.
Sean said experience versus fact is always the way. Like it's a fact everyone needs a shell dweller tank or 2. Everybody should, and you don't need one all the time, but you should at least set one up and experience it. They're not, most shellies aren't super cheap fish, but they are easy to come by for the most part. And they reproduce like crazy. So get yourself a multifasciatus. Is kind of my go-to like beginner shell dweller, I guess.
I have some multis, they're awesome.
They are great. If you if you want darker colors, the Similis are kind of like a multi, just a little like reverse coloration. Instead of a light-bodied fish with dark stripes, they tend to be a darker-bodied fish with a little bit lighter stripes.
The ocellatas are cool too. They're kind of goldish.
The gold ocellatus are great. Jeffrey Watts said he has multis. His next ones are Dwarf Sumbus, which are on my list too. Those are harder to find and definitely more expensive, running from, seems like 20 to 25 a fish is about the going rate. Those gold ocellatus are in the 10 to 20 range, just depends on the shop you go to. So I'll say stop. Looks like everybody's throwing their numbers down. Let's see what happens. 51 to 100.
All right, let's roll it, I guess.
75. So we had a couple 69s. Fish Guy Nick said 71. Fish Guy Nick, you said 71 and 72. However, regardless of which one of those guesses we take, I believe. Okay.
Coast Aquatics has 72
Scott
as well.
also said 72. So we will do a runoff between, it looks like Scott's and Fish Guy Nick, who cheated.
Do between 1 and 10.
1 and 10. So Fish Guy Nick and Scott's Aquatics, just the two of you, drop one number. So Fish Guy Nick said, someone else said 72, so I changed. That's okay. I didn't see who else. Scott said 72. Fish Guy Nick said 72, and then he said he changed it.
If you change your number, you gotta retract the old one.
So we will originally wrote 76, but that's still over. And I owe you stuff already, Cheshire. You're already getting plants next week.
Whoever gets the closest without going over.
So since Fish Guy...
Uh-oh, we lost Mike.
All right, I'm back. All right. Fish Guy Nick said he changed because Scott's guessed 72. So I appreciate the honesty, and we will go with Scott's Aquatics for recount. Roundhouse wants a recount. So Scott's Aquatics, email me. You know my email, I think. If not, I'll drop it below. Mike.allthingsfish@gmail.com. Buzz me an email. Let me know. Again, an 8x10 or an 11x14 of your choice from our buddy Scott at Third Coast. Again, thanks so much, Scott. Appreciate you stepping up and just helping us out here tonight.
That's
Kevin,
pretty cool.
That's pretty sweet. And the more I'm involved in, the fish family and hanging out with folks, the more people that I see are doing artwork, which is great because I love it. Not so great for my wallet, maybe, but that's okay. That's okay.
You don't have to ship it.
So, Scott said he will. Congrats to the winner. No sour grapes here. However, Patty's letting you know that you're number one. Congrats, Scott. So we'll wrap it up here shortly. Like I said, we talked about water changes. We talked about some of the more specific, topics about water changes, why we do water changes, etc. Things to look out for, some of the equipment that you might use, some different ways to change water. If you guys have any questions, I'll probably give it another 15 minutes or so. Feel free, drop some questions in the chat, and more importantly, let me know. So Priscilla streams Saturday night at 10?
Same time, 10 p.m. Eastern.
10 Eastern. So Priscilla
7
MK.
Pacific.
Yep. So she'll stream Saturday night. I myself will stream again next Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern. What do you guys want to learn about? Or what do you want me to learn about? Dragon Layers said, that's not a number one. It's close. So what's a good topic? I know polls have been a big deal on YouTube lately, and YouTube likes when people do polls. But I'd rather just talk to you guys right now and see what you guys want to discuss. Or if one of you guys wants to be up on the stream, we can have one of you up and we'll talk about you.
Fertilizers would be great topic. NPK values.
NPK, we could. We got a lot of guys talk about Tanganyika and fish in here tonight.
True.
Which I'm not a Riff Lake guy myself. Fish guy Nick said ferts. Ferts are an easy one. We'll talk about ferts. The thing is, you can be successful with ferts without going into stupid details about them.
Yeah, so but the basics.
Ferts are fun. We can talk about the why and what's going on. Sean, let's talk about shell dwellers. Sean, if you want to come up on the stream next week and talk about shell dwellers, you know more about them than I do. We'll kick Priscilla off. Boom.
You just kicked yourself off.
We'll get rid of Priscilla and we'll have Sean talk about shell dwellers. Maybe
there too if Sean's there.
We'll think about it. 3's a weird number.
I just invite myself. How about
that? Roundhouse said, quick question. Would using anesthetic be better than clove oil for fish? Are you referring to euthanization, or are you actually performing some type of operation on your fish? This would be a great question for Stephen, the biologist, who is absent tonight. But if you can clarify, I can give you my 2 cents. It might not be the right answer, but I'll give you my opinion. Kira wants to talk about ferts. We could do that. Ferts would be a good one. We could talk about ferts and how to make these plants in the background look like the plants that they are.
So the euthanizing fish, if it comes down to that one, clove oil will work, but the most humane way would be to flick the fish, basically. I know a lot of people can't do that, but other than that, clove oil is a good option. You just have to put a lot. Do not freeze your fish, because freezing is kind of a slow situation, which is not humane.
Unless you have access to a method to flash freeze it, like liquid nitrogen, where it can happen almost instant. People might not like to hear it, but my preferred method is quick blunt trauma, I guess, or if you can sever the spinal cord. And that's what Roundhouse was talking about, was euthanizing fish. Clove oil, I feel like people don't necessarily know the right dosage to use. They don't know how fast it's going to happen. They're like, it numbs them and puts them to sleep. Does it? Do you know that? I mean, have they done stress tests on fish after they introduce clove oil? I don't know. But I know that instantaneous stuff works. My 2 cents. It's not a fun topic to talk about.
No.
I get it.
Atkins Nature Aquariums. Hello.
Ian's here. Hey, Ian. What's up? Loria said they'd like to learn more about ferts and or fish diseases and treatments. So let's plan. For now, and it's always subject to change. It could change 5 minutes before the stream. Let's plan on. We'll do ferts next week. and we'll talk
And we
about.
could do medication on Saturday.
You want to do that? You want to do Saturday medications? Okay,
Yeah.
let's plan that. So if you guys are interested in medications and potentially diagnosing your fish, we'll plan on a Saturday. Priscilla's going to lead the charge on that one because I'll be honest, that's not really my forte. But Saturday, 10 p.m., Priscilla from Swiss Aquatics. That's www.swissaquatics.com. Priscilla MK on YouTube. Boom, there's her channel. We'll talk, or at least Priscilla will talk about some medications.
Yes.
So as mentioned, Stephen, the biologist, described what happens when you freeze fish. The way I compare it is, I mean, as a human, you know how it feels just to get, if you've ever been seriously cold, you know how that feels. Imagine taking that to the max. So yeah, and people are like, well, if you put them in icy water super fast, I don't buy that. I don't buy it myself. Cinder block sandwich, sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Potentially messy, but
no, I don't want to go into details on how to do the
right.
blunt force trauma thing.
Yeah. I said it quick if you can do it quick. Otherwise, if you have a sharp knife, you know, to the spinal cord. Like I said, it's a dark topic, not something that's fun to finish the night off on. Patty said she's interested in medication and fish disease. So Patty, we'll see you Saturday over at Priscilla's stream there. Jeffrey Watts is using some Holy Rock and lots of Val. Val's one of those things. There's very few obligate aquatic plants. So plants that only grow fully submerged versus immersed. A lot of the plants we grow are naturally immersed and are only submerged for a small portion of the year. But Vals are one of the ones that are actually underwater all the time. And they like hard water. So if you look at like Lake Tanganyika, you'll see a lot of those.
Also, back to the euthanizing your fish. If you can't do it for whatever reason because you're emotionally attached to your fish or any other reason why you can't do it, you can call your local fish store and ask them if they could take the fish, and they might do it for you.
Kira said she loves her Val. There's some cool Vals, and there's some that like the Vallisneria americana or whatever, the jungle Val that gets like 10 feet long. I mean, it can look cool. It'll also outgrow any tank on the market. But Kevin said they'd be interested in quarantining fish, plants, and inverts. Or do you guys even quarantine? Yep, 100% quarantine.
Yeah.
Unless even if I know where they're coming from, I'll put them in a quarantine tank just because, you know, obviously a week or two is extra work, but it's better than losing a tank full of fish, especially when you're getting into high dollar fish, just because you didn't want to wait 2 weeks.
I even quarantine my plants.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay. But it's 10:35. We've been running a little over an hour and a half now. I tried to cap it there. If anybody wants to fire up a stream, I know sometimes Tom does or sometimes Anthony does.
it's not 10:35. It's 10:29. Your clock's not right.
Well, I'll fix it. We're close. So you guys got a few minutes. But we're getting there. Just be advised, we're going to shut this thing down shortly. So thanks for tuning in. Again, if anybody wants to fire up an after party type stream, or if you have something going on, gladly, I might jump over there, join in for a little while. We can chat. I know it's Tuesday. It's getting a little bit late. Sometimes people have stuff to do. Kevin asked, do I preemptively treat? I do not, for various reasons. It's a lot of stress on the fish, and a lot of the sources that I get my fish from are fairly reputable. So I will quarantine them and then treat as I see things happen.
Mm-hmm. That could be a whole other good topic, quarantining.
Mm-hmm. Quarantine, that's different methods, etc. So Kevin, you asked if I preemptively treat. So people like Dan from Dan's Fish, he gets his fish straight from, the importer, more or less. So he does preemptively treat his fish. I get a lot of my fish. I get some fish from Dan. Others are breeders that I know. So there's no need for me to, preemptively treat with medications going to stress a fish that's already been exposed to that medication recently that probably doesn't have anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
Patty wants to talk more about fish euthanasia. Some things have gone right. Sometimes I feel like it didn't, and I didn't like that. And that's something that's always kind of on your conscience, is like, did I do it the right way? Did things go smoothly? And it's one way to just not, that's not, it's tough to tell, and it weighs on you. And I feel like the bigger the fish is, sometimes they have more personality. If it's all fish lives matter, whatever. But it's a lot easier to handle a guppy versus maybe you have like a big Frontosa, or you have, I'm not a flower horn guy, but maybe you have a big flower horn or an Oscar. And like, now, well, this is a big fish. Like, I have to seriously think about what I'm doing here. So there's always going to be people are going to have difficulties with it, and that happens, and it's unfortunate. S asked, fish room tour video dropping anytime soon? I don't really have a fish room right now. I have a room with a couple fish tanks and a disaster. But I did do some video of that. I initially said I'd drop videos Mondays and Thursdays. I've been terrible about it. I'm sorry. But I will be posting a fish room type video shortly, where you guys can kind of see where I'm starting at and all the work that I have to do. Kira said that she can kill big fish with a hammer, but can't do the same with a rice fish. I would feel the other way around, but whatever works for you. Cheshire Cat said gets fish from Petco or PetSmart, treats with meds in quarantine. Again, my habits are to quarantine and treat as I see fit. Sean doesn't quarantine, but they said he buys through people that he knows a little bit better. Crowntail Half Moon stopping at the end. John Oliver always medicates new fish as a preventative. So John Oliver, I know you recently, I believe you imported, if I'm not mistaken, a bunch of fish. So I could definitely see that. Jeffrey Watts, bless your heart, Kira.
Oh, that's nice.
Indeed. Be nice to Kira. That's right. She's apparently we got to watch out for her. I wasn't aware that. You'd think, like, watching her Instagram and stuff, that she wouldn't be a threat, but stay on her good side. George is here.
She's a woman. You always want to stay on a woman's good side, right? You should know that.
Right? What's up, George? Hope you're doing well. Sean doesn't do commute tanks. Yep, going back to medications. Ian says he doesn't medicate unless he needs to. So, again, lots of different habit patterns and techniques and methods.
What's the plan for you for the rest of your night? I'm gonna do water changes, so
I gotta be to work at 7, so I'll probably crash.
Oh.
So John says he is talking about his imports. He gets meds for around 10 days. So probably a similar process, maybe different, technique than what Dan does, but probably a similar process. Kira said, hi, George. George, thanks for tuning in. I know you missed it earlier. Maybe you were lurking and just got a chance to say hi, but we talked about water changes for the most part, when we might do them, how we might do them, etc. Some of the details. So if you're interested in that, I'd welcome you to check out the replay. Deborah Lewis, hello. Roundhouse says someone better do a stream. You might be able to convince George to do that. George
Go
usually,
for it.
Or fire one up yourself. But on that note, I'm going to call it a night. Priscilla, thanks for stopping by. Scott Henderson from Third Coast, thanks a ton. Appreciate it. Again, I'm going to order some stuff for myself. A couple lucky people are getting some stuff for them as well.
Yay.
And I appreciate everybody. Scott, Patty, Nick, George, John Oliver, of course, S, Kira, Ian, Dragon Lair, Loria. You guys seem to be, the Tuesday night crew that's interested. So I appreciate that. Tell your friends. Maybe we can get a few more people in here next time. 30 is a great number. I think it's a good size. It lets me, I think at most I was maybe 20 minutes behind, but I like to talk too much. So sorry about that.
It is an amazing crowd.
But, I'd rather have 30 awesome people that are super active and asking questions and chatting back and forth and giving me feedback than 300 people and they're either just sitting there watching or lurking or whatever. So thank you guys, everybody that's here, Crown Tail. I know you tuned in at the end. Catch the replay. Appreciate it. I don't see anybody specifically saying they're going to fire up a stream for the late night, but you guys are more than welcome to. If you do, I don't know if Anthony's around. Send me the link, and I'll gladly jump over there for a little bit.
I'm sure somebody will.
Saturday night, Priscilla, 10 p.m. Eastern, and then, of course, join us right back here next Tuesday. And I think we're going to talk about fertilizers was kind of the general consensus. Dragon said, thanks for the stream. 100% refreshing. That's what we're going for. Something a little bit different. Something a little more informative with hopefully you guys are entertained a little bit. So Priscilla, thank you. Have a great night. Everybody in the chat, all the lurkers, everybody in the replay, thank you. And stay warm. Good luck. And we'll see you next time.
See you later, guys.
Bye-bye.